I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, with my stomach twisting in knots and my brain running in overdrive. It all started on a night that should have been filled with joy, our wedding rehearsal dinner. Mark and I had been planning this day for months. We were so damn happy, or at least I thought we were. That night, everything changed. We invited close friends and family, trying to keep things intimate. The mood was light, the air thick with laughter and the smell of roasted chicken and fresh bread. I was feeling good, even excited. When Mark and I arrived, his brother, Jake, was already there, acting a little too casual. I'd always had a funny feeling about Jake, like he was hiding something, but I shrugged it off. Family's family, right? Then I noticed Jake whispering into Mark's ear, and they kept glancing over at me. I caught the way Mark's eyes flicked away quickly. Something was off. I decided to brush it off, but then I saw Jake's hand subtly brush against Mark's. Just a quick, casual touch, too casual for brothers. My stomach sank. I felt the world tilt under me. The evening moved along, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. It wasn't until later that I saw the text on Mark's phone. I'd just gone to get some more wine when I caught him on his phone, eyes darting nervously. I peeked over his shoulder. The message was from Jake. "Tonight's the night. Can't wait to see you." My face went numb. My fingers curled into fists. I tried to play it cool, but the blood pounding in my ears made it impossible. I excused myself to the bathroom, leaning against the sink. My reflection stared back at me, eyes shadowed with disbelief. This wasn't just some random flirtation, it was betrayal, right there in the open. When I returned, Mark looked guilty, but his smile was forced. I tried to act normal, but my mind was spinning. I knew I had to see for myself, so I decided to check the bedroom, just to confirm what I already suspected. I slipped away from the table, heart pounding, and headed down the hall to our bedroom. That's when I saw them. Jake's shirt was half unbuttoned and Mark's hands were on his waist. They froze when they saw me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My voice was cold, trembling, but controlled. "What the hell is going on?" Mark's face turned ghostly pale. "It's not what you think," he stammered. But I saw the way Jake smirked at me, like he'd been waiting for this moment. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and snapped pictures of them entwined on our bed. They looked guilty, caught red-handed. My whole body was vibrating with rage. How could they do this? How could Mark betray me like this, right in my own home? My hands shook as I looked at the evidence on my phone. The photos were clear, their faces pressed close, bodies tangled. I could smell the faint scent of sweat and betrayal lingering in the air. I didn't say a word after that. I just turned around and left the room, clutching the phone like a weapon. I went straight to my car, ignoring their shouts behind me. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what I'd just seen. Nothing about this was real. It couldn't be. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and the weight of the betrayal heavy on my chest. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to figure out my next move. I sat there, staring at the photos on my phone, feeling like I had been punched in the stomach 100 times over. My trust was shattered. How could I ever look at him the same way again? I decided then and there I wouldn't let this slide. If he thought he could cheat with my brother and get away with it, he was dead wrong. I needed a plan, a way to make everything right, or at least make him regret ever crossing me. My palms were slick with sweat as I started to plot. I knew the revenge wouldn't be simple. It would have to hit where it hurt: his ego, his pride, and most of all, his sense of security. I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to show him that I was done being a naive fool. I'd make him feel the pain of betrayal in ways he never expected. But first, I had to play it cool, gather all the pieces, and wait for the right moment. I looked out the window, feeling the cold morning air seep in. My mind was set. I was going to make him regret everything, and I wasn't going to stop until he knew I was serious. Once I had the photos burned into my brain, I knew I couldn't keep this quiet. Not anymore. I needed to act, to plan, to make sure he understood that I wasn't the kind of woman to be betrayed so easily, especially not by my own brother. That day, I spent hours trying to sort through my feelings and come up with a plan. I wasn't just angry. I was hurt, confused, and surprisingly calm in a way I never thought I'd be. First, I needed the evidence. I wasn't going to confront Mark or Jake right away. That might have been satisfying in the moment, but it wouldn't serve my purpose. I wanted them to understand I knew everything, that I was always watching, always paying attention. So I took the photos, saved them securely, and started digging deeper. I went through Mark's phone again, looking for anything else that could give me an edge. I needed to know if this was just a one-time thing or if they'd been sneaking around for a while. Turns out, they'd been texting nonstop for weeks, hiding their secret behind vague messages. I also found pictures of Jake's apartment, which confirmed they'd been planning this for a while. I made sure to keep my cool when I talked to my best friend, Lisa. She was the only one I trusted enough to confide in. "You're not going to believe this," I said, voice steady but low. "Mark and Jake, they've been sneaking around behind my back. I have proof." Lisa's eyes widened. "Are you serious? How are you even functioning right now?" "I don't know. I guess I'm just waiting for the right moment. I need to see how they react once they realize I know. That's the only way I'll get what I want." My plan was simple but brutal. I was going to make them believe I was clueless for now. I wanted to keep them hooked, to let them think they'd gotten away with it. Then I'd strike at the perfect moment. I knew I had to be patient. Patience was the only way to ensure I got my revenge and made it stick. Over the next few days, I acted like everything was normal, even though inside I was boiling. I went to work, smiled at my friends, and pretended I wasn't breaking apart inside. Meanwhile, I kept the evidence close and monitored their every move, every message, every glance, every suspicious contact. Then Mark called me out of the blue one evening, sounding nervous. "Hey, I guess we should talk," he said softly. I played it cool. "Sure, Mark, talk about what?" "I don't want us to go through this alone. I know I screwed up and I want to fix it. I want to explain everything." That's when I knew it was time. I told him to meet me at the park that night, far from prying eyes. I needed him to see I was serious. When he showed up, I confronted him with the photos, laid everything out on the table, his face drained of color. "You lied to me," I said, voice low. "You and Jake sneaking around thinking I'd never find out. Well, I did, and I have proof." He looked at the photos, eyes glued to the screen, his hands trembled. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a stupid mistake. Please, I swear it's over." I nodded, but inside I knew better. This wasn't just about breaking up. I was ready to destroy the foundation of his lies. I told him I'd be watching, waiting for the right moment to make him feel the same pain he'd caused me. That night I lay in bed replaying everything, the betrayal, the lies, the sense of betrayal so raw it burned. I felt a strange calm settle over me. I had what I needed, and I was ready to execute my plan. I wanted him to know he couldn't cheat and lie and expect me to forget. I'd spent years building a life with him, and now I was about to tear that life apart. I knew revenge wasn't just about hurting him. It was about reclaiming my dignity. I didn't want to be the woman who got played like a fool. I wanted him to understand exactly how much he'd lost, and I was just getting started. I stared at the ceiling and realized something. This would change everything, but I wasn't going to be the one left broken. No, I was going to make sure he remembered that I was the one who called the shots now. And when the time was right, he'd regret every moment he ever thought he could betray me and walk away unscathed. The days that followed were like walking on a tightrope. Every glance at Mark felt loaded with unspoken tension. I kept pretending everything was fine, but inside I was orchestrating my next move. I knew I had to be patient, bidding my time until the moment was just right. I didn't want to blow up everything in a rush. This needed to be calculated, precise. Meanwhile, Mark kept trying to reach out, acting remorseful, acting like he wanted to fix things. I played along, but I was careful to keep my guard up. I needed him to believe I was still in the dark, still vulnerable. That way, I could steer the situation where I wanted it. I also started planting little doubts in his mind subtly, making him wonder if I knew more. Then I showed. One evening he showed up at my apartment looking nervous. His eyes darted around the room before he finally spoke. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I was stupid. I never wanted to hurt you." I looked at him, feeling the familiar sting of betrayal. "You cheated on me with my brother," I said coldly. "And you want me to believe you're sorry?" He flinched. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened. I swear I never loved Jake. It was a mistake, and I'll do anything to make it right." I crossed my arms. "Anything?" He nodded quickly. Yes, whatever it takes. I let out a bitter laugh. You think saying sorry is enough? You think I'm just going to forgive you after pulling this stunt? He looked desperate. Please, just give me a chance. I'll prove I'm serious. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. That's when I decided to lay my cards on the table. I told him I'd been planning something, and it wasn't about forgiveness. It was about justice. There's no way I'm just going to forget this, but I have a plan. Mark, and you're going to wish you never crossed me. He looked uneasy. What plan? I smirked, feeling the rush of power. Oh, you'll see, but I want to make sure you understand one thing. This isn't just about revenge. It's about making sure you never forget how much you screwed up, and I'll be watching every step of the way. I could see the wheels turning in his head. He knew I was serious, and that scared him. That's exactly what I wanted. I let him leave with a promise to talk again, but I had already made up my mind. Now I had all the pieces I needed, and I was ready to execute my plan. Later that night, I went over every detail. I needed one last thing: leverage, proof, something undeniable. I decided to get copies of their text messages, more photos, anything that would shake him to his core once I revealed it. This wasn't just about catching him in the act anymore. It was about making him feel the full weight of his betrayal. I knew what I was going to do. I'd set the trap, and when the time was right, I'd strike. All I had to do now was wait for the perfect moment. My stomach clenched at the thought, but I kept telling myself, this is justice. If I could do this right, he'd regret ever crossing me. I sat back and looked around my apartment, feeling that strange mix of calm and fury. I'd never been the vengeful type, but when someone you trust turns toxic and destroys everything, it awakens something dark inside. I wasn't about to let him walk away unscathed. Not this time. The night drew on, and I kept my phone closed, checking messages and notifications. I was alert, ready. My plan was about to unfold, and I knew the moment was coming. When it did, Mark wouldn't just lose my trust, he'd lose his peace of mind. And I was going to make sure of it. That evening, I felt a strange mixture of anticipation and nausea. I knew the moment was near, the point where I'd finally show Mark I had been watching, waiting, and gathering everything he thought was hidden from my sight. I had all the pieces now: the stolen messages, the photos, the broken trust. My plan was simple but ruthless. I was going to confront him with undeniable proof, then turn everything upside down. I waited until he texted me that he was home alone, no Jake, no distractions. I told him I needed to talk face to face. When he opened the door, I saw the nervous flicker in his eyes. He looked like a man who knew he was about to face the consequences of his actions. Come in, I said coldly, stepping inside. The apartment felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in. I set my phone on the table, my hands trembling slightly but my voice steady. You wanted to talk? Well, I have some things to show you. His eyes darted to my phone. What is it? I pulled up the first photo: Jake and Mark tangled together on our bed. His face went pale. That's not what it looks like, he muttered. Oh, really? I clicked to the next picture, a string of texts from Jake that I'd intercepted. It looks pretty damning to me. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? He swallowed hard. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for you to see that. I shook my head, feeling the adrenaline spike. A mistake? You and Jake? How long has this been going on? He looked down, silent. I could see the sweat on his brow, the way his fingers fidgeted. That's when I revealed the full extent of my evidence. I pulled out the photos of their messages, the screenshots I'd taken secretly. You thought I was stupid, didn't you? I said, voice dripping with contempt. You thought I'd never catch you. Well, I did. And I've got proof enough to ruin you, Mark. You're not just a liar, you're a cheat, a traitor, and a coward. His jaw clenched. You don't understand. It meant nothing. It was just a moment of weakness. I scoffed. A moment? This has been going on for weeks, Mark, weeks. I saw the texts, the late-night calls, the secret meetings. You thought I was blind, didn't you? He looked like he wanted to argue, but the truth was splattered across his face. I could see the guilt, the regret, but also the fear. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. I want you to leave, I told him, voice sharp. Pack your things and don't come back until you've figured out what you've thrown away. Because I'm done pretending I didn't see the truth. He hesitated, trying to speak, but I cut him off. You don't get to explain or apologize, not anymore. You lost everything, Mark. You betrayed me and you betrayed your family. You don't get to walk away without consequences. He looked at me one last time, eyes filled with a mix of guilt and defiance. "You'll regret this," he whispered, voice thick. I took a deep breath, feeling the cold resolve settle in. "No, Mark, I won't, because I'm done being your fool. You can take your lies and walk out that door, and I'll be here rebuilding what you tried to destroy." He left without another word, slamming the door behind him. The apartment was eerily silent. I looked around, feeling a strange calm wash over me. I'd finally confronted the truth, and I'd made sure he knew I wasn't going to be played anymore. Now I just had to wait and see what happened next. The fallout was inevitable, and I was ready for it. I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would finally take control. I sat down on the couch, clutching the phone that held all my evidence. My fingers trembled, but my mind was clear. I'd done what I needed to do. The next step was to let everything unfold. And when the dust settled, I'd be the one standing tall. Because trust me, if someone betrays you once, they're never going to change. And I was done trusting anyone who thought they could get away with it. The silence after Mark left was deafening, but I didn't feel hollow. Instead, a strange sense of clarity washed over me. I knew I had done what needed to be done. All the lies, all the betrayal now exposed. But I also knew better than to believe that the fallout would be simple or painless. Mark was probably already plotting his next move, trying to save face or come back begging. I started preparing myself for whatever was coming next. That night, I stayed up late, going through everything again. I double-checked the photos, the messages, making sure I had all the evidence I needed. I wanted to be ready for the storm, whether it came from Mark or Jake or anyone else involved. I wasn't about to be caught off guard again. My mind kept circling back to the idea of how far I'd come, how much pain I'd bottled up, and how much I was going to use that pain as fuel. The first thing I did the next morning was call Lisa. "He's gone," I told her, voice steady. "He left the apartment like it was a crime scene. I think he finally gets it now." Her voice was a mixture of shock and relief. "I knew you'd do something. You're strong, even when you don't feel like it." "Yeah, but I'm angry, so damn angry I could spit, and I want him to know that." I paused, then added, "I'm planning to send him everything, every message, every photo. I want him to see it all to really understand what he's lost." Lisa was silent for a moment. "Are you sure? Once you send all that, there's no going back." "I don't care." My voice was firm. "He's got to see what he threw away. I want him to regret every second of his betrayal, and I want Jake to see it too. They're both going to feel the weight of what they did." With that decided, I spent the rest of the day compiling everything. I organized the photos, the messages, making sure I had a clear, undeniable record of everything. I also drafted a message to Mark, telling him I knew the truth and that I had proof. I told him to think about what he'd done and to remember that I was watching, always watching. When night fell, I sat at my laptop, heart pounding. I hit send on the email to Mark, attaching all the evidence. I included a simple message: "This is what you lost. Don't ever try to contact me again." I watched the email send, then leaned back in my chair, feeling both exhausted and strangely empowered. Now I had no illusions. The real work was just beginning. Whatever fallout came next, I was ready. I understood that revenge wasn't just about hurting those who wronged me. It was about reclaiming my control, my dignity. Over the next few days, I kept a close eye on everything. Mark's reactions came swiftly. First, silence. Then a few half-hearted texts trying to apologize or explain, but I ignored every single one. I wanted him to sit with his guilt, to stew in the mess he'd made. I also started to distance myself from the people I used to trust. Some friends whispered about Mark's shame, others avoided me altogether. That was fine. I didn't need their pity or their judgments. I only needed to focus on what came next. The biggest turning point came when I realized Jake had been silent. I knew he'd received the evidence too he had to have. I wanted to see how he'd react. So I sent him a message explaining that I knew everything, that I had proof, and that I was done playing games. I told him he could choose to be honest or stay in his lies, but I wasn't going to be part of it anymore. The reply was predictable. Jake tried to deny everything, but I didn't bother to respond. I'd already made my peace. The truth was out. There was no hiding from it now. And yet somehow I felt lighter, like I'd taken back a piece of myself that I'd lost during all those months of silence and betrayal. This was the moment I'd been waiting for when I finally took control. The next step, I was going to leave, not just physically but mentally. I found a new place to stay, one that Mark wouldn't know about. I was going to start over, rebuild my confidence, and heal from the damage he'd caused. That's when I realized I wasn't just doing this for revenge. I was doing it to save myself. So I signed the lease, packed my bags, and handed over the keys to the apartment that held all of our memories, now tainted by betrayal. As I walked out that door for the last time, I felt an unexpected surge of strength. Sure, everything had fallen apart, but I was still standing, and I was going to be okay. Sometimes, revenge isn't about the pain. It's about reclaiming your power and realizing that you don't need someone to complete you. You just need to be willing to walk away from what's destroying you. The final step was the hardest but also the most necessary: leaving everything behind. I handed over the keys to the apartment, the place where betrayal had festered and shattered my trust. It felt like burning a bridge, but I knew I had to do it to move forward. As I locked the door behind me for the last time, I felt a surge of relief mixed with a strange sense of liberation. I drove to my new place, a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. It was nothing fancy, but it was mine. I looked around at the empty walls, the fresh paint, and thought about how much I'd been through. The pain, the betrayal, the planning, all led to this moment where I finally took back control. Sitting on the new couch, I stared at my phone, which still held all the evidence I'd gathered. I knew I could delete it, destroy it, erase every trace of what had happened. But I kept it instead. Not out of obsession or revenge, but as a reminder. A reminder that I survived something nobody ever should. That I was stronger than any betrayal. That I had the power to rebuild my life from the ashes. I reflected on everything I'd learned. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who can hurt you the most. But I also learned that no matter how deep the pain, you can reclaim your strength. You can walk away, rebuild, and find happiness again, even when it feels impossible. That night, I finally allowed myself to breathe deeply, to truly relax for the first time in weeks. The weight of betrayal was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I knew Mark and Jake's lives had been forever changed by their choices, and I didn't need to be the one to punish them anymore. I had already done that in my own way. It's been months now since I took that final step. I'm healing, growing stronger, and learning to trust again on my own terms. The pain of betrayal still lingers, but it's no longer a prison. It's a lesson, one I won't forget. And as I sit here, writing this for anyone who might be going through something similar, I want you to know, you don't have to accept betrayal as the end. You have the power to walk away, to start over. Revenge isn't about destroying the other person, it's about reclaiming your life and dignity. So if you're feeling lost, betrayed, or broken, remember this. No matter how dark things seem, there's always a way forward. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply walking away and building a life where you're in control. Because nobody else gets to decide your worth, that's up to you. And I choose to keep moving forward.